Okay, so in section 5.5, we're going to look at theoretical probability of single events. And probability is something you've probably never looked at before, and that's okay. It's a new topic, so don't feel spooked if you've never seen it. So when you're looking at an experiment or any sort of thing where you want to know what the likelihood is of something happening, when you have outcomes, so when you have things that can happen that are equally likely, so think about flipping a coin. It's equally likely that you get a heads or a tails, right? You have a 50-50 shot. But when you're looking at something slightly more complex, but the probabilities are still equally likely to happen, the way that you, or the formula you use to determine the probability is by looking at the number of ways event A can occur over the total number of possible outcomes. So if you have a probability of event A, and A just means some event, doesn't matter. Probability that you're going to get a heads, let's say. A is heads. The probability of event A will be the number of ways that event A can occur. So how many different ways can you get a heads when you flip a coin? You can only get heads once, divided by the number of total possible outcomes. What are the possible outcomes? So if we're looking at probability of getting a heads when you flip a coin, the number of ways that getting heads can occur is 1. So that should go up. And the number of different possible outcomes, you can have heads or tails, right? So 2. So 1 over 2, and that's a reduced fraction, so that's good. Or 50-50. People will say you have a 50-50 chance, or 50%, okay? So you're going to see probability expressed in some different ways. Probability can be expressed as a ratio. It can be expressed as a fraction. It can be expressed as a percentage. All of these are valid, but the most formal or typical way that you'll see it represented is as a decimal. Okay? A decimal, and it's a decimal between 0 and 1. 0 being 0% and 1 being 100%. So if we're looking at a decimal notation, the probability that an event will occur the probability that an impossible event will occur, so something that cannot happen, that would be 0%, or you'd just be looking at 0. Sorry, I'll put the decimal first. So it'd be, as a decimal, it'd be 0.0 or 0%. The probability that a certain event, so this is definitely going to happen, will occur. Let's say I ask you what's the probability that the sun comes up tomorrow. It's pretty much 100%, so we're going to call it 1 or 100%, barring anything spooky in sci-fi. And all other probabilities are going to lie between 0 and 1. Okay? If you are not told, always write as decimal. Okay? So if you're not asked specifically as a percentage or as a fraction or as a ratio, always write it as a decimal. That's the safest way to do it. Okay? Or the safest way to always get it right. Okay. So let's look at an example here. At the pet store, Sarah is buying 50 biscuits for her dog. I forgot an S, but that's okay. So she got 26 chicken flavored biscuits, 14 cheese flavored biscuits, and the rest are beef flavored. And the clerk is putting them all into one bag, and she pulls out one biscuit to give Tico, her dog. So if they're all in one bag, Sarah can't see. This is getting a cheese, chicken, or beef flavored biscuit. All of those outcomes are equally likely. So what is the probability that Sarah pulls out a cheese flavored biscuit? So what we'll do is we'll take the probability of cheese is going to be over is going to be equal to the number of cheese flavored biscuits over the total, right? Because this is the number of different ways you can get the outcome that you want, which is cheese. So the number of cheese biscuits that we have is 14. The total biscuits is 50. So this would be our fraction, but you want to reduce it, so make it as small as possible. So to do that, you have to take out a common denominator. So I'll divide both the top and bottom by 2, and I'll reduce my fraction to be 7 over 25, okay? So that would be my fraction answer. If we want to figure out the ratio answer, you just put it like this, 7 to 25. We did this in one of the first units, I believe, like that, okay? To get from a fraction or a ratio to a decimal, you take your top number, your numerator, and you divide it by the denominator, so 7 divided by 25. That's going to give us our decimal answer, which is 0.35, okay? And to turn it into a percentage, you have to multiply that by 100%. So that would give us 35%, okay? So there's a 35% chance that Sarah pulls out a cheese-flavored biscuit. Awesome. All right, let's keep going. What is the probability that Sarah pulls out a chicken-flavored biscuit? Well, if I go back to my question, probability that she gets a chicken-flavored biscuit is going to be equal to however many chicken we have over the total. And looking at the question, we have 26 chicken-flavored biscuits. Okay, the total is 50. Once again, though, we have to reduce this fraction, make it as small as we can, so that would give us actually 13 over 25 if we divide the top and bottom by 2. Okay, so if you're getting it wrong on the answer key, it could be that you didn't do this part. When you're working on the assignment, you got to make sure you reduce your fractions. 13 over 25, our ratio would be 13 to 25, like that. Okay. Our decimal, you just do 13 divided by 25, which is 0.52. And our percentage, we multiply 0.52 by 100, that would give us 52%. Okay, great. What is the probability that Sarah pulls out a beef-flavored biscuit? Now, they didn't specifically tell us, they told us 26 chicken and 14 cheese. They did not necessarily tell us how many, oops, I didn't mean to erase that part. They didn't tell us how many beef flavored biscuit. They just said the rest are beef flavored, okay? So to figure out, we have to figure out exactly how many beef flavored biscuits we have. So we're going to do that by taking our total, and we're going to subtract. We know that there were 26 chicken, and subtract again, there were 14 cheese. If we plug that into our calculator, that leaves us 10, which are going to be the beef, okay? So probability of getting a beef flavored biscuit is going to equal the number of beef over the total. Formula doesn't change, okay? So how many beef biscuits do I have? I have 10 over my total, which is 50. Got to make that smaller, so I'm going to divide it at both top and bottom by 10. I get 1 over 5, okay, or a 1 to 5. If I divide 1 by 5, I get 0.2, and if I do that as a percentage, I get 20%, okay? There's my decimal, here's my ratio, here's my fraction. Sorry, that got kind of squished. All right, what's the probability that Sarah pulls out a pork-flavored biscuit? Well, there weren't any pork. No pork. So the probability is just going to be, if we're looking at the technical formula, the probability of a pork-flavored biscuit is going to equal the number of pork over the pork over the total. But we don't have any pork, so 0 out of 50. So all the way along, my fractions are just going to be, so that's 0 out of 50, that's 0 to 50, which if we divided it, we'd just get 0 or 0%, okay? You don't have to do all of this. If it's an answer that's 0, you can just say the probability is 0, okay? And then last one, what is the probability that Sarah pulls out a flavored biscuit? Well, all of our biscuits are flavored. So I wrote it the American way, that's fine. All are flavored, so the probability of getting one with a flavor, there, it's Canadian, is equal to the number of flavored biscuits, not number of flavors, number of flavored biscuits over the total. And because they're all flavored, that's just 50 out of 50, okay, which is the same as 1 over 1, or 1 to 1. So as you guys can see, I'm just going through it all to show you, but you don't have to write. You could just say the probability is 1 or 100%, okay? So they're all flavored. It's 100% likely that she'll get a flavored biscuit. Yeah, that's all there is to it for this section. Make sure you are writing out your questions, like I said. If you're not told, answer in decimal. So answer with a decimal if you're not specified or given a specific way to show your work. And please do all of the assignments, okay? This hopefully should be pretty straightforward. All of the questions are going to be very similar to this example question, okay? So if you get stuck, come back to the example, look at how I worked it out. And I think that's all I have for that. Okay, that's all I've got for today. Thanks so much.